Hello everyone, welcome. I'm Joanne Tandaan, and this is the weekly webinar that we do. Our recent webinars are all about FormsViewer and what we can do with FormsViewer on SharePoint. And it's been a while since I did a webinar, so a little bit about me. I'm Joanne, and I'm a software tester at Qdabra. I've been here for almost 7 years, and I'm in Manila, Philippines. I'm also with Kirby Laborte. She's my sister. And over a year ago, I encouraged her to join Qdabra, and now we are on the same company, and we enjoyed working together ever since. So, Kirby, do you want to share something?
So I'm Curvy Laborte, and I'm also from the Philippines. I'm the support lead at Qdabra, and I've been working in Qdabra for almost 2 years now. And we're really excited to share with you this new topic in FormsViewer about using the Get User Profile by Name web service. So it's been a while since we presented a webinar that discusses about this topic. So now we wanted to share with you the latest update in FormsViewer with regards to getting the SharePoint's user properties.
Thanks, Kirby. It's good to have you here. So, today's topic is going to be about getting user profile data in Forms Viewer. And this is important because in our recent Forms Viewer 4.2 release, we provided a way to query the site user information list by adding a source parameter in the get user profile by name command. So there are now two options. You can query user data from the profile store or the site users list, and you can use these as values in the source parameter. Then we'll talk about what is required in order to get these sources work for you when you're using them in your command. And this may require some SharePoint admin steps that includes elevating the Forms Viewer app permission so it can read the extended properties. And the other one is about how to replicate the custom properties to user profiles so that you can query them. Then at the end, we'll also show you how to query the user properties in Forms Viewer. So in getting user information, you have two options. You can query the user data from the profile store or from the site users list. And it is important to note that the current default source in the get user profile by name command is profiles. And in the next Forms Viewer release, the default will be the site users list. So if you choose profiles, you need to, or your SharePoint administrator needs to run this step because the FormsViewer app needs to have elevated app permissions in order to read extended properties. So in using profiles as the source, these are the default values you will get in your query. You'll have account name, login name, preferred name, and some other important stuff like email address and department and manager. Um, Of course, querying from profiles will only work if you have elevated the Forms Viewer permissions to read extended properties. And this is required in 4.2, but if you have installed the Forms Viewer version prior to 4.2, you may not need to run this permission request. So the steps are here. The admin will navigate to this URL. It is called app.inv.aspx page. Just replace the SharePoint name with your own site. And then uh, you'll need to enter the Forms Viewer client ID here in the app ID text box and then click look up. And then uh, entering that will query the Forms Viewer app details and will supply the other uh, fields with the correct values for the app. And then what's left is entering this XML in this permission request box and then clicking create, and then you have to click trusted in the next page to let SharePoint know that you are trusting the app. Let me show you quickly how to navigate to that page. I have here my notepad where I'm storing my URL. Okay, so this is the page, and this is where the SharePoint admin will enter the client ID for FormsViewer. If you don't know the client ID of the FormsViewer app, we are providing that in the package for you. So in the webinar package, you'll see FormsViewer client ID in a text file. So this is the text or the client ID that you need. We're providing both client IDs for FormsViewer Prod and FormsViewer Europe. So what we're looking for is the client ID for FormsViewer Prod. So I'm going to copy that and paste it here in this page. Click lookup. As you can see, query the information for my app. And the last thing I need to do is just paste the permission XML here, which I'm copying from my PowerPoint. Okay, so and then click create. So I don't have to do that because I've already done that in my trial tenant site. So if you need to elevate the permissions for your FormsViewer, you need to let your SharePoint admin that this step is required. So going back to my slide here. So like I said, we mentioned a little bit about getting the client ID. We provided that in a text file in this webinar package. If you want to know the client ID manually, you can extract the app content. If you downloaded the app from our IPdev site, so if you downloaded the app, you'll get something like this, a .app file. You'll just rename that to a .zip file. Say yes, and extract the files. This is just a little extra information. And find the app manifest.xml file inside the content. So this is the client ID that you're looking for. So yeah, that's how to get the client ID manually. But like I said, we're providing it for you in this webinar package. So I think I lost it. Okay, so how to get the app client ID. So that's how to. So say you want to switch to using site users because you don't want to go over that elevate permission stuff. So you need to know that site users source will be the default in the next FormsViewer release, and you can query a lot of important user data as well when using site users. But like I said, it requires replicating custom properties also in the admin center and will take 24 hours to take effect. So just a little bit of info. The site users list is kind of a hidden list in SharePoint. Oops, sorry. It's not working right now for me, but it's a hidden list in SharePoint, and it's actually synchronizing data from the user profile store. So whatever data you have in the user profile store synchronizes to the site users list. So they basically have the same information, but when you're using the site users as source, these will be the default properties that you will get. So there will be plenty of important information here, like mobile phone, first name, last name, of course, work phone, username, and very important stuff, login name. So this list might already be enough for your form, but if you need to query some custom properties that are not in this list, then you will need to replicate them in the admin center. So the steps is here are here. The SharePoint admin will navigate to the SharePoint Admin Center, go to more features and click open for user profiles. And there on that page, there's a link called Manage User Properties. And let me quickly just show you how to get there. So this is the user profiles. I'll just click open. And this is the Manage User Properties. SharePoint is a little bit slow today for me, but this is the page that will you will be directed to this page once you click that. So it will present the list of properties that are available in the site tenant. So if you when you need to replicate it, you select the property. For example, manager is not replicated by default. So you want to create the manager, for example. You'll click edit. And in this user profile edit page, you will look for the policy settings section. And then there's a replicable checkbox. That's what you're looking for. So click that and it will prompt you and say something like replicated data will not be deleted by turning the setting off. Just click OK. And just take note that there's some important information here, like to replicate properties, the default privacy must be set to everyone. So that's everyone, and the user can override checkbox must not be selected. So that's unselected, and only the replicable checkbox is checked. So we'll say OK on that. So this is not instantaneous. It will take a few hours to take effect. So we will not see the changes in my tenant or trial tenant site yet, but in our current site, in our Qdabra 365 site, we already have replicated the manager property. So that's how you replicate the custom properties for user profiles when you want to use the site users as source. Okay. So my next slide is just about an overview of the GAC User Profile by Name command. And most of you may already be familiar on how to use this command. Maybe your forms are already using GAC User Profile by Name. And these are just examples on how to apply the command in the rules in your form. And as always, you can use the our FormsViewer designer. There is a command builder, and in the screenshot to the left, you'll see the command builder where you can just put in, supply the values for the parameters, and it automatically generates the command for you. So it's very easy and handy to use. So why this is important? Because almost all forms make use of user data. Like for example, a leave request makes use of a manager name, maybe a manager email in order to push the workflow approvals. So GAC User Profile by Name is the most frequently used command in FormsViewer. So it's a good thing to learn about how this new changes works in this command. So so this is about finding and querying all the properties, because just last week one of our colleagues, Don Frack, discovered a hack on how to query all the profile properties using just a REST URL. So you will browse to this URL, just replace the SharePoint site using your own SharePoint site, paste that in your browser, and it will return an XML text for you, and you will just copy that and paste that into the sample form we're providing. And there's a button there that allows you to get all properties, and you can instantly get all the user profile properties in your tenant site by just using that form. And I'm going to show you that in a second. Okay, so I'm now switching to demoing my forms. First is see, so I want to show first how that form works, the querying of all of the user profile properties in SharePoint. So to get all the properties, this is my, check if that's right, okay, the URL that I use. So that's the XML, and I just copy that and paste the XML here, and just click get my properties. So all the properties that are available in my tenant site are displayed. As you can see, the properties are displaying the actual property name, not the display name, because you want to use the actual property name, which is sometimes different from the display name in SharePoint. So I can just copy whatever column I need in my command and just basically combine them and use them in the properties parameter. So that's how we get all the user properties in the user profile store. And my next form here is a form designed also by Dawn, and thanks Dawn for designing this form for us. It's really helpful because I can just enter some command here. So for example, I want to use a get user profile by name command and display all these properties, because these properties are not shown in the profile source by default. So I included them in the properties parameter using semicolon. So here in my command, I'm not using the source profiles parameter because, like I mentioned earlier, profiles is the default source for the current release. So even if I don't include that, it will query the profile store for me. So here are the results, the user data returned. I got the about me section or value. This is not by default, so it's showing here. It's really nice. And I also have my cell phone, which is not by default. Account name is default. Department is default. Email is also default. Login name as well. So there you go. So these are also some properties that I added in the properties parameter, hire date and website. So that is profiles. If you want to use the site users, you need to include a source parameter and specify that you want to use the site users list, because that's not by default. So if I use that, it will return also a lot of information from me. Same information, account name, slightly different, but I think still enough for me to work on my forms. So yeah, so if you need, like I said, if you need some custom properties that are not default, then you need to replicate them. And one of the columns that we just replicated is manager, and it's still not available in my tenant site. but in our Qdabra site, it's already here. So I okay, it's just maybe a hiccup. So you want to include the properties parameter and then specify that you want to look for manager. So there's my manager, it's Karu. So it's returning my results because I specify that in my properties parameter. So yeah, it will return your result given that the value is available also in the user profile store. So um, yeah, if this is not appearing for any of your users, then you need to maybe troubleshoot in the admin center and check that all information are complete for the users. So to give you just a um, quick some information about how we designed this form. This is just querying the get user profile by name user from the user profile service, and we are just copying in the secondary data source data from into our main data source, and we have our copy values here, our rules that are making use of a counter to copy them in a repeating table in our main data source. So this form is also included in the package that we are sending you. So yeah, if you have any questions, we're happy to answer that. If you can chat your question, paste your questions in chat, then uh, I can review that. So in the meantime, uh, Kirby is going to tell us something about um, what other value FormsViewer can give to your form. So Kirby?
Okay, thanks, Joanne. So, can you share the slide about FormsViewer? All right, thanks. So yeah, FormsViewer is a great product. It's the only app out there that lets you quickly move your forms off of InfoPath. That way you can keep your investment without rebuilding it from scratch. And there are a lot of cool things that you can do with your forms when you have FormsViewer. It offers features like making your forms mobile responsive. It also allows form access to external users and therefore reducing your licensing cost. It also allows to generate PDF copies of your form, and you can also add security to your forms using SMS or two-factor authentication. And we also provide free template parts. One in particular is the auto logout or auto save XTP, which will automatically save the changes if the form remains idle for a specific period of time, and will automatically log out or close the form. And you can go check that out in our InfoPath Dev community site and all the other free documentations and other template parts. And also, we also offer pay-as-you-go support for customers who are requiring Forms assistance. And lastly, you can now get Forms Viewer in the SharePoint store, so we encourage you to check it out. And if you want a quick demo of Forms Viewer and what it can offer you, feel free to drop us a line and we'd be happy to schedule a meeting with you. So, Joanne?
Yeah, thanks Kirby for that information. So that's about it, guys, for this webinar. I hope you learned something and enjoyed it. So we hope to see you in the next webinar. Like I said, if you have any question, we can take some of your questions offline and we'll answer by email. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.